Welcome on into the pre-show before the free show.
Your camera is all wonky. I probably hit that, to be honest with you.
Honestly, it was probably me. I'm still trying to get the hang of it, so
We're just going to adjust it like right there. You're watching live coverage of us adjusting cameras because it's just wonky. Welcome on into the pre-show.
How's it going?
Good.
Good.
You have a topic.
I do.
I don't remember. You told me probably about 30 minutes ago what that topic was, and I can honestly say I do not remember what you talked about.
Awesome.
So what if we go to Mallory Hartley with our pre-show topic?
So last night I was watching the French Open.
Tennis.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
And I don't know much about tennis. I've started playing tennis myself. I really enjoy it. It kind of takes the stress off, you know. And I was watching it last night, and I learned that these tennis players, they are not allowed to be coached during an actual match.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not allowed. Their coaches can coach them all the way up until the beginning of a match, but right after that, they are not allowed to have contact. And they sometimes get in trouble if it looks like they're making hand signs to their players.
Yeah, beating trash cans like the Astros.
Right.
Trastros.
Exactly. But
I had to throw that out there.
But I thought that was so interesting because then it started to get me thinking, what other, sports could actually do that? You know, what other sports could actually not be coached during a game?
Right. So I know for a fact from playing golf in high school, it is highly frowned upon for coaching to go on during golf tournaments. Now, it's kind of one of those things where I think the official ruling, and yell at me in the comments if I'm wrong here, but I think the official ruling on that is that the coach can talk to you in between holes, but not necessarily like stroke by stroke as you're playing. I do know parents are definitely not allowed to talk in golf, and so there's one. But going into other sports that could be played without like big time coaching,
it's hard.
Individual sports, I feel like because you brought up, what was your example was swimming and diving.
Swimming, yes, definitely, because I mean you can't really even you're under.
You can't really talk to them.
You're under the water, so it's not like you can like peep your head up and be like, oh yeah, coach, I got that from over there. Like, you're underwater, right? So, but of course, like football, there is no way. Right. I mean, those coaches are way too every single one of them way too involved in the play calling. There's just no way for that. Basketball included. I mean, I kind of thought about basketball maybe, but there's just no way. The coaches are just way too involved.
Right, and I think that kind of starts to differentiate the fact that team sports require more of an involved, constant oversight of coaching rather than individual-based sports. And you can argue either way with that. But it seems like when we think about sports where coaches are highly, highly involved in nearly every decision, are constantly yelling, it's team sports like football and basketball and, that type of softball even. It's like they're helping with the signals and whatnot, baseball, and it's like,
it's just
I guess individual sports is more where they are able to kind of step back a little bit.
And especially like in football and basketball, I mean, they're much more complex sports than tennis. I mean, there's more play calling action, that you really need those coaches there. Right. But like in tennis, I understand it because you don't need them there as much. It's really just a mental game too, right? It's much more of a mental game than.
I was going to say that I think pace of game really kind of plays into that a little bit too, because if you think about it, like golf and tennis, those individual sports are much more mentally focused in my mind. Like, I'm here to talk about golf all day. That is probably in my mind like the most stimulating mental game that you can play, because anybody can go out there and swing a golf club. Like, I'm not saying that you have to be insanely athletic to be good at golf like you would playing defensive end on a football team.
Exactly.
But the mental thing makes it just as difficult, if not more difficult, than any other sport. But I feel like maybe that's where like the hardcore indecisive coaching really starts to come into play there. Right. Like, that's a good point.
Right. Like golf and tennis, very slow moving. You don't have much action, as football or basketball. It's right. So you really don't
pace
need
of
those
game
coaches.
plays so much.
I think that's really the key here.
Yeah.
The pace of game, honestly.
Because even when like you could say in tennis, I played tennis in high school too, and it was like you're constantly playing and stuff, but if you need to stop and get a water break at any point in between serves, technically you can.
Right.
So it's like you get to dictate the pace of, you've got to keep it going kind of, but it's not basketball where in basketball you are dictating the pace, but the clock is continually running. Like you are on a scheduled clock.
Right. In tennis, you can pretty much coach yourself in that too. I mean, I've never been coached in tennis, and I've just kind of figured everything out on my own.
Right. Yeah, the basics of it.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. That was a good topic.
Yeah.
All right. Hit the theme expo.
Let's go!
Free money! How to sing
Yes, y'all, from the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Mothership here in beautiful and sunny Louisville, Texas. It is Texas Football Today, a show on the internet. My name is Ashley Pickle. I'm the video director of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, a magazine, and TexasFootball.com, a corresponding website. Thank you for spending part of your day with us, whether you're watching us live on TexasFootball.com, on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, or you are listening to us on the podcast, which you can subscribe to on the podcast vendor of your choice. Thank you for doing your part to support your local mediocre internet show. I am sitting over there at the helm, the lady running the show this week, Miss Mallory Hartley. Mallory, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm good.
Good.
I feel more relaxed than yesterday.
Okay, good.
I was a little nervous yesterday, but I feel a lot better today.
Good. We're glad to hear it. Everyone's kind of sinking into the to the interestingness of this week.
Yes, absolutely.
So today is June 8th, 170 days until Thanksgiving. June 8th. 44th birthday of Yeezy, Kanye West, celebrating his 44th birthday today. So
Kanye for president.
Something like that. Today is episode 1181. On today's show, my friends, we went inside the numbers here. This is a segment we're really, really excited about, and we're going to go in and we are going to grade the units of Texas college football and see just what we think are the strongest units down all the way to the weakest units. We'll use some of the data that we have coming up in the 62nd edition of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, and we've put a numeric value to it. So we're going to take a look inside the numbers at that, and then in the back half of the program, of course, we got to talk a little bit of Mean Green football as we take a look into the North Texas state of the program with Mean Green 24/7's very own Matthew Brune. So excited to have that. But before we dive into some of those numbers, Mallory, do we have first four through the door?
We sure do. It was Rob Hadaway, Daniel Agnew, Andrew Christensen, and Aaron Arbuckle. Welcome in, fellas.
Welcome in, fellas. All right, Mallory. So to start off with, we're going to go inside the numbers here. And this is something that we came up with, and we wanted to, if you reference back into our Dave Campbell's magazines, I'll pull up the 61st edition, so this was the 2020 version. Y'all know that in the college section, we have the grading the units segments. So there's 4 on offense, 4 on defense. On offense, there's quarterbacks, running backs, offensive line, and receivers. On defense, it's defensive line, linebackers, defensive backs, and special teams. So we go through and we grade them. So let's go ahead and pull this up here. We showed you how we're turning this into a numeric value. This is our grading scale for grading the units of Texas college football. Now, the possible grades are all the way from A+ down to D-, as you can see there. So there's technically 12 different grades that each of these units could get. We decided in order to figure out and put a numeric value to figure out which of these units is the strongest in Texas college football as a whole, and again, this is based off the 12 FBS programs, we put numbers to each of them. So obviously an A+ is the highest grade you can get, so that scale value in a numeric form would be 12 all the way down to 1, which is D-. So we have that, and we took the 8 categories of those 4 offensive, 4 defensive, and we took this grades from the upcoming 62nd edition of the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine right here, the 2021, heading into the 2021 season, to see which position had the most depth in it. So we crunched the numbers, and here's what we came up with here. Going in order here in our Texas College football, grading the units. Out of the 12 FBS programs, running back comes through at number 1 with a average score of 9.3. Coming in second there, special teams with 8.8, receivers in third with 8.1, defensive backs coming in fourth with 7.8. Then we move down into the bottom half of our 8 categories here. Linebacker with a score of 7.7, offensive line with an average of 7.1, defensive line with an average of 7 even. And then coming in last place, quarterback rankings with 6.8. So like we said, these are the grades of the 12 FBS programs heading into the 2021 season. We took the data from the magazine that will be coming out here in a couple of weeks. So we're not going to tell you exactly what the grades are of each unit. If you want to find that out, please subscribe and get our magazine sent to you. But taking a look at this, there's quite a few things that you can take away from this. And I think that running back is probably not a surprise to most people that it's the highest ranked.
And even me and you were talking about this before we even crunched these numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and we were discussing that we thought running back was probably going to be up there and in the top 3, you know?
Right, because you think about it, and if you look at maybe, take the Power 5 units per se, and you've got Isaiah Spiller up there, you've got, even Bijan Robinson, who started to be a breakout star last year, so you're looking at those really, really good running backs, but I think the thing that pushes running back into that number 1 spot is even in our group of 5 schools, when you go down to UTSA, you have arguably the best running back, not only in Conference USA, but in Texas football as a whole, in Sincere McCormick. So when you start getting those Power 5 schools, or the group of 5 schools, that can also put up those numbers at the running back spot, I think that was not super surprising. That running back does show the most depth in Texas college football heading into the 2021 season.
Absolutely.
On the other side of that, you and I both, after crunching the numbers, went, special teams.
Yes.
Didn't expect it to be at the bottom, didn't necessarily expect it to be in that second ranking.
Right, no. And, we were kind of looking at the teams, and of course, Rice ranks up there in special teams. And I even looked more into Rice and their special team ranking in the nation, and one website had them at ranked 11th in the nation for special teams, which does make sense in the long run.
Yeah, and you look at that, and again, when the group of 5 have those really strong units like that, it really does start to push up a little bit. And I mean, I can let you in to this. In our special teams, we had 4 out of the 12 that were ranked in the A's. And so that once you start getting on that numeric scale, like we said, A+ being the highest at 12, down to A- would be the lowest ranking of the A category, then it's 10 points. So I mean, you're really starting to rack up the points there. And so as we continue to go on, I think another thing that people are going to highly focus on here is the quarterback ranking.
Yes.
Pulling up in that 8th spot, according to Dave Campbell's Texas football, really being the weakest lack of depth in Texas college football. But you look at it and you think, okay, well, are they just saying that all the quarterbacks are awful?
Right.
No, really, it's kind of a
toss-up. You just
we
really
don't know.
Right. And of course, we've got a couple of Texas high school football quarterbacks that are ranked up there that are going to some of these Texas colleges, like Eli Stowers and Eddie Lee Marburger. So it'll be really interesting to see if they really make an impact in this quarterback ranking.
Right, and that is such a good point with overall, when you look at the quarterbacks in Texas Texas college football right now, you can say, well, there's a lot of veteran guys that we just really don't know. Take Texas with Casey Thompson for a minute. We saw him in the bowl game, but how much stock do you put into that? But the other side of it is, there is a lot of teams that have, you look at A&M, they've got Haynes King. Then you look at UTSA, they've got Eddie Lee Marburger. Texas has Hudson Card. All of these players that we know were bona fide studs, really, really good athletes in the high school realms. We know that the best way to describe quarterback with an overall rating of 6.8 is to sit there and say, well, look, this ceiling, we know it's high. Right. You can't tell me that Hudson Card isn't a great quarterback, that Haynes King isn't a great quarterback. ELM, let the boy cook over there at UTSA. We know how high the ceiling is. The floor could also be low, because we just don't have the data yet. It's a preview magazine. Obviously, we're going, that number could go up if we see those young guys at the quarterback position take a big step forward and get the starts and all of that. Then heading into next year, I bet you that quarterback position goes up. They're not going to be in that last plate, but now it's a
You don't know.
We don't know.
We're very confused, just like you guys are. It'll be interesting to see. I'm really excited for that quarterback position, just because I feel like it usually is a dominant position in Texas,
And I think another big thing to show there is linemen. Man, they were sitting there at the 6th and 7th spot there with a pretty average ranking. And looking at our spreadsheet that we put together here, it's a lot of them that are just kind of in that lower B, mid C realm.
Right.
And that's something also that if you want to go even further into the weeds, is you could sit there and say that could honestly affect the play of running backs. Exactly. You have running back category sitting there at number 1 with a score of 9 point whatever it was. And then if you have the offensive line sitting all the way down there, those are things that play back and forth into each other.
Right, absolutely. If you have a year where, overall you don't have that good of an offensive line, your running back is not going to be as strong. No matter, we've talked about this before. No matter how good your running back is, if you don't have a strong and big offensive line that can really guard for you, you're not going to be as successful. You're not going to be able to live up to your full potential, right?
No, you are absolutely right. So it's, obviously we know that it's a team game. It all goes into play, but I just thought that those numbers were super interesting. And another point to bring up here, because it was mentioned in the comments, just about the quarterback spot. We talked a whole lot about the young guys that we haven't been able to see play from the Texas high school football ranks. But if you look at the other side of that, the returning starter with the most experience is Max Duggan from TCU. Which I'm not saying Max Duggan is not a good football player, but I'm not saying that he is a superstar.
Best.
So it's like you've got that to go off of. And then you want to bring in Tech. They've got their new quarterback that transferred in from Oregon. And it's like, well, he played in a Pac-12. The guy can sling the ball, but is that going to fit in those scenarios heading into the 2021 season? So again, all of those numbers, we thought that was pretty interesting to take it. We took it from the regular grading scale that you've seen in the magazine for years and years now, put it to a numeric value, and those are the numbers that we came up with running back being the position that we expect heading into 2021 that has the most amount of depth, and then quarterback being the last, which I feel like pretty much explains itself. Yes. So we didn't give you exactly what those gradings were, but that's because we want you to find out and get them in the magazine. All of those are in there. Our college football guys worked really hard to put all those together. Some very enticing stories, but overall, pretty interesting.
Yeah, this was all you. You came up with this segment, and I kind of just helped you crunch the numbers, but
crunching the numbers.
Great job on that. I think it was super interesting. I hope you guys liked it too, but very good job.
Absolutely. So there you go. Inside the numbers, looking at the depths of positions and giving them grades in Texas college football. All right, we are Texas Football Today. We're here every weekday at noon talking football in the Lone Star State. We hope you will become a Dave Campbell's Texas Football subscriber. And guys, here's why. I've shown this magazine cover a couple of times. This is the 62nd edition of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. We have sent this baby to press. It's got the A&M new crew defense on the main cover. We've got Coach Scott Surratt of the Carthage Bulldogs, the Lord of the Rings, on the gatefold cover. And we are very, very excited to get that magazine to you. But here's the main thing we need you to focus on here. If you subscribe by tomorrow, June 9th, Wednesday, June 9th, if you subscribe by the end of the day tomorrow, we can guarantee that this baby gets sent directly to you. You get to hashtag miss the FOMO. When people start tweeting out that they're getting their magazines in the mail, you can do it as well. On top of that, you'll get the magazine guaranteed directly to you, but you also get a year's worth of online content, premium podcast, everything that you could want for Texas football in the great Lone Star State. So one more time, texasfootball.com/subscribe. If you do it by tomorrow, we will guarantee that you will get your magazine before it hits newsstands, which would be not until July. So texasfootball.com/subscribe.
Miss the FOMO.
Hashtag miss the FOMO.
Yes.
All right, Mallory. Let's go to the hotline because it is time to do another State of the Program address, this time focusing on those Mean Green Eagles, as we like to say around
and we're both
here.
wearing our Mean Green gear, so
yes.
I don't know if you can see it.
Had to show out our Mean Green gear here, but we are welcomed on by Matthew Brune, who is with meangreen247.com, the host of his own podcast on Mean Green 24/7, and of course co-host with our very own Ishmael Johnson on Dave Campbell's Texas Basketball podcast. So Matthew, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. It's good to do a North Texas podcast with some North Texas alums like myself, so this will be fun.
Absolutely. People are going to get sick of hearing the caw today, but we're going to go ahead and start with a pretty purposely vague question here. When you take a look, and you are very well connected with this Mean Green football program, heading into this 2021 season, what is the state of the program here with North Texas?
It's a point where they need to pick up some momentum. I was talking to the athletic director, Ren Baker, last week, and that's kind of his main goal, I guess, for this season, or one of his main goals, is trying to just pick up that momentum for football that they've had in, every other sport, obviously, basketball success and all the other success, softball. You go down the list, football is the sport where they're kind of hoping to make up some ground here. Yet they had the 9-win seasons back in 2017, 2018. And then back-to-back 4-win seasons here. It's just kind of been a weird rebuilding process after, the departure of Mason Fine and all of those seniors. There were 24 seniors in that class with Mason. So we knew last year was going to be tough replacing all those players. But despite the 4-6 record, it wasn't as pretty. I don't even think as the 4-6 record sounds. Like, it was really tough losses to Charlotte, Southern Miss, you go on SMU, and so I think they're just looking for some momentum, so consistency. They're hoping that the new defensive coaching staff really can help out, and they have a lot of returners from last year's team as well, outside of Jalen Darden and a couple others. But I think they just want some momentum. They want to figure out. They want to get back to a bowl game, obviously, and I think that this is a really, really big year for the Trail and this program to get back to a bowl game.
Absolutely, and it's one of those things, like you said, after Mason Fine left, I think everyone who follows the Mean Green football program understood that there was going to be a tad bit of rebuilding. I don't think that any of us were hoping that it was going to be this much rebuilding, but that was a big question last year, specifically focusing on the quarterbacks. Obviously, Jason Bean played some time. He's gone now. Austin Ani is the returning starter, possibly. But they also have, the UNC transfer and Jace Reuter. From being around the program, and I know no one likes to name a starter until we get there, but from what you've seen, who do you think has the most likely chance to take this quarterback position and be the actual solidified starter?
Yeah, the hard part is Jace Reuter, graduated from North Carolina and still has 4 years of eligibility left because of all the crazy injury red shirts and COVID red shirt. So he just got on campus, if anything, probably this past week or so. So it's kind of been a feeling out process with him, just, figuring out the protocols and everything, the schedules and everything for North Texas. He's still getting accustomed to everything. So, and it's been hard the last few years for him. He's been injured. So there's not a lot of film to go off of for him. I think when North Texas got him, I don't want to say it was a shot in the dark because he's very talented and he was a 4-star player coming out of high school, but it was definitely something where they thought he could definitely start. They didn't get him to be a project, I don't think. I think they got him with the idea of him potentially starting this coming season and giving Austin competition, because if you don't add him, then Austin is easily the starter going into this year. And if I had to pick one, oh man, I flip-flopped on this. I've flip-flopped on this a lot. I'm going to say Ace Reuter because I'm not sure how much better Austin can do than last year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
That's the tough part, because Austin he only completed, I think, 57% of his passes through through interceptions. And while he's been in the system longer and he obviously has a higher floor than Reuter, I think Reuter just can potentially give this team something that they didn't have and that they don't have. So we'll see. It'll be an interesting battle for sure.
Absolutely. And then when you take a look at the rest of the offense, a new note here, obviously, is that offensive line coach Mike Blesh, I think. Is it Blesh or Blosh?
Yes.
Blesh? Okay.
It's Blesh.
Sweet. Wanted to make sure on that one. But he got promoted to the offensive coordinator, and I think that's really, really notable because that takes a little bit of the pressure off of Luttrell from making those play calls. And then he's got guys like DeAndre Torrey coming back at running back. You got Jair Shorter coming back off of injury. After not focusing just on the quarterbacks, but if we take the quarterbacks and say they find the one that they're looking for, how does the rest of the offense perform coming up in this upcoming season?
Yeah, to go back to that initial point you made about Blesh taking over for Luttrell. Luttrell, obviously last year, it was his first year calling the plays the entire time himself. He talked about how much fun he had. But it's just, he's at a point, Luttrell is, where this is still his first head coaching job. He's still learning the ropes, even though this is going to be year 6. And I think calling the plays might have been a little too much, too quick for him. And with so many holes that team had last year, he felt weird just focusing only on the play calling. So I understand giving the play calling to Blesh for the most part. As far as the rest of the offense goes, I think there's only a couple question marks here, and besides the quarterback, because the offensive line is going to be a very solid unit. I think they're top 4 or 5 in conference, you'd say, pretty comfortably. They return a lot. Jacob Brammer, Mose up front. And then running back, we know what they have. DeAndre Torrey, like you said, Oscar Adaway out the backfield. Those two, that's a 1-2 punch that's going to be very potent and formidable for them. I think it just comes down to the receivers. And last year, the receivers outside of Jalen Darden were really disappointing. Obviously, Jair Shorter went down game 3 of the season. So that hurt. But then Deontay Simpson kind of let them down. And then some of that depth they had last year just never really appeared. So Austin Agunmakin transferred out to Liberty, and a couple other players are left. So it's a lot of young players there, whether that's Lorenzo Thompson, DeTravian Brown, a couple transfers, Bryson Jackson. But that the receiver position is what I'm most interested in this year, because if they do get a quarterback and figure that out, then it's going to have a lot of pressure on Jair Shorter, Deontay Simpson, Georgia transfer Tommy Bush as well. So a lot of questions out wide. That's what I'm looking forward to.
We're talking with Matthew Brune of Mean Green 24/7 and Dave Campbell's Texas Basketball. Get involved with the conversation, #TF today. All right, Brune, we're going to switch to the other side of the ball now on what was just I'm going to you got to say it. It was horrific last year on defense. Not ideal in any stretch of the way, but they're bringing in a veteran, a guy that knows his way not only around being a football coach, but around the state of Texas in Phil Bennett. This is his 5th Texas college that he's going to be working on. What in the world does Coach Bennett need to do to get this defense to a unit that can actually compete with other teams?
Oh, man. This was a team that I believe ranked 100. They ranked second to last in the country in rush defense.
Oof.
So that's the first thing. They didn't force many turnovers at all. I mean, it was pretty obvious to anyone who watched just any drive of last season how inept they were last year. So, and there's not a huge turnover of personnel, right? So you got a lot of the secondary back for the most part. You have the linebackers back in KD Davis, Tyreek Davis, Kevin Wood, those guys. Defensive line, Deon Noville's back. The Murphy twins, Gabriel and Grayson are back. So you have a lot of returners. They picked up a couple transfers, but personnel-wise, it's pretty similar to last year. So all eyes just turn to the defensive coordinator and the defensive staff, because that's what it's going to take to really overhaul it. And as soon as Phil Bennett came in, he talked about fundamentals. He said he would watch games last year because he's obviously close with the trail. He would watch games last year and just kind of be disappointed with the fundamentals of the team and just not, gap discipline and a bunch of other stuff that he saw while watching the games. And so I think for him, it has to be just hammering home those fundamentals, because if you do that, I feel like you can at least get this defensive top 100, which I think is what they're going to have to do. And that's a really big jump to go from, let's say, 127 to 100 or 105. And I think that's what they have to do to be competitive here in this season. You can't just have a defense that allowed like 45 points a game last year. It was incredible. So, yeah, so I'm really interested to see how he does it. I know they're going to go more multiple 4-man front, whether that's 4-2-5, 3-3-5 type stuff. They're going to change it up more, but it's a lot of pressure on him to come in and make a change and make an impact in a season like that I said earlier, when we were talking, is a very big season for this team. So a lot of pressure on Bennett and that staff.
Absolutely. And you led me perfect. It's like you host a podcast or something. It's like, you know what you're doing around here, but you led me perfectly into my final question here. And that is Seth Littrell, like you said, heading into his 6th season here. I mean, he was at one point one of the hottest young coaches in college football in the nation. Past 2 years really haven't cut that out. Do you think that heading into this year that Seth Littrell is on the hot seat with this Mean Green program?
I do think he is, but I think it's attainable to get off of it. I don't think it's this hot seat that he has to do something unrealistic to save his job. I don't think he's in that situation. I think 6 wins would do it for sure. 5 wins would be close, but 6 wins would definitely do it. Get to a bowl game. For anyone who hasn't already, go look at North Texas' schedule. It is pretty difficult as far as non-conference goes, and then conference as well. Games 2 through 7 for them, they're going to be underdogs in every single game. So, there's just stretches where, and I've talked about this before, whether it's on podcasts or written about it. He needs to pick up a marquee win, and he hasn't had that since Arkansas. And we know after Arkansas is when things started kind of going downhill, because that's when they lost a La Tech on the blocked field goal and lost a couple other games, and they've never been able to get that swagger back. So he needs to pick up at least one big win, for probably 2, but 6-6 is what I think he's going to have to go. And, it's not an easy schedule to where you can just write off 5 wins. He's probably only going to be favored in 4 or 5 games. So It's going to take some work, and it's going to take some overachieving, which we haven't seen since that 2018 season. So I definitely think the seat is hot. but it's not, he kind of controls the oven in a sense.
Absolutely. He's Matthew Brune of Mean Green 24/7. You can listen to his podcast, Brune's Breakdown, on 247.com. And, of course, him and Ishmael Johnson, everyone's favorite Ishmael Johnson, on Texas 24, our Dave Campbell's Texas basketball podcast. Brune, really appreciate the time, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Yep, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
There he goes, Matthew Brune of Mean Green 24/7. Appreciate him joining us here today, and he's right. I agree with the fact that it's one of those things. It could be, I don't think it's ultimate hot seat, but he's got to do something, or else I think Mean Green fans are going to be calling for him. Right. You know, it's time to step up. And two, never won a bowl game either. That, to me, with those teams that he had specifically in the Mason Fine years, and yes, Mason got hurt a couple of times there. The fact that he's never won a bowl game, even when they made it for 4 years, that's a big downfall on the resume.
Well, and I was even going to say, too, I mean, last year was even really just their rebuilding year without Mason Fine. I mean, South Latrell built that offense around Mason Fine. It was very clear. And when you have two quarterbacks like Austin Aune and Jason Bean switching out each game, I mean, we didn't even know the starter until almost the day before. Right. We didn't know. You can't develop that chemistry with a team when you can't solidify that quarterback position when you're switching. You know, of course, towards the end of the season, you had Austin Aune as the starter. But it's really hard to develop that chemistry when you're switching back and forth. So I'm thinking hopefully this year, when you do solidify that quarterback position, the team will start to be able to rebuild. And plus, Matthew did mention that a lot of defensive players are coming back, which is always which is always good. You know, they've got those reps in already. Hope. They know how to work together already. So maybe we'll see a switch in the team this year.
I think, offense has its way to get it done. That defense has to, and I mean has to make major steps forward, or else it's done. So you hope that Phil Bennett, a veteran around the state of Texas, is going to be able to come in and really make a change there, or else we could be talking about a completely new rebuilding program.
Giving up 45 points a game is just not.
You can't do that.
You can't. You can't do that and win games.
I didn't go to college to study math, but the math that I do know is 45 points a game ain't gonna get you very far.
You can't do that unless you're in the Big 12.
I respect it. All right. So, again, thank you to Matthew Brune of Mean Green at 24/7 for joining us to take a look at the state of the program for those North Texas Mean Green Caw. All right. And now we head over back to the helm, Mallory, for our favorite segment, America's favorite segment. Final thoughts.
We do have one final thought.
Okay.
We have a big announcement coming up in this week. We're not going to let you know what it is now because we want to tease you for tomorrow.
Yes. So we have a big announcement coming. We'll do it at the end of the show tomorrow so that you watch us the whole time.
Yes.
Also, Powers will be here. Everyone loves Powers. So yeah, tomorrow we'll do some curtain and stuff, and then a big announcement for Dave Campbell's Texas football coming then. Want to remind you one more time that the 62nd edition of Dave Campbell's Texas football, A&M, Scott Surratt, if you subscribe by the end of day tomorrow, Wednesday, June 9th, we will guarantee that you will get that magazine before it hits newsstands. It won't hit newsstands until probably that first week of July. So if you want it in the month of June, when all the subscribers are getting it, go ahead and go to texasfootball.com/subscribe to get that done. You don't just get that. You get a whole other magazine. You get unlimited content online and everything that you can go. But if you want to make sure to get this baby that we are very proud of, go ahead and go to texasfootball.com/subscribe to guarantee by tomorrow that we can get that to you with the rest of the subscribers. That's going to do it for us. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Make sure to give us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/Dave Campbell's, Instagram.com/Dave Campbell's, and on Twitter @DCTF. And, of course, you can see us on TexasFootball.com. Thanks again to Matthew Brune, our guest, for joining us to take a look at the UNT program. For Mallory Hartley, I'm Ashley Pickle. Vince Young, come get it. Like, Tepper's not here. You don't have to be scared anymore. You can come get it. It's just us.
Just come get it.
We're friendly. We'll see you guys tomorrow with a big announcement on Texas Football Today.